Over the past couple of weeks, and of course the weeks coming up here, we're going to be talking about some of my go-to resources and tools for my self-publishing business. And today goes into something that I lean into heavily and use daily, and is a grammar checker. More importantly, actually, ProWritingAid. And we're going to discuss ProWritingAid and why I rave about it so much. And we're going to talk about, is ProWritingAid worth it? We're going to make sure you stay tuned to today's podcast. What's happening? It's Dale here, and I'm just tickled to death. You took a little bit of time out your day to spend a little bit of time with me to talk about my favorite thing in self-publishing. And normally I go into this whole section right here, right now, talking about brought to you in part by and sponsors and such. But since I'm talking about self-publishing resources and tools, I'm part of an affiliate program, meaning that if you order the service through my link, I get a small financial commission. And it does not adversely affect your price, but it does greatly help out this podcast. Of course, if you want to take a look at ProWritingAid and get 20% off for listeners and viewers, go over to dalelinks.com/ProWritingAid. Again, that's dalelinks.com/ProWritingAid. The link will be, of course, in the show notes. Now let's back it up just a second here. Let's talk about grammar checkers in general. Actually, before we do that, what's ProWritingAid? Okay. In their words, ProWritingAid is the only platform that offers world-class grammar and style checking combined with more in-depth reports to help you strengthen your writing. They also say our unique combination of suggestions, articles, videos, and quizzes makes writing fun and interactive. I agree. The interactive element, it almost gamifies the process when I go through each one of the reports. We'll talk about those reports here in a second. But in my words, let me just make it basic here. It's an online grammar checker with the most robust features for improving your writing. That's it. All right. Now, my initial thoughts when I got ProWritingAid was, okay, this works. This is great. It's catching my passive sentence structure. It's getting my typos. It's getting some awkward sentence structures. Great. My biggest issue was I was overwhelmed. And I said it back at the time when I did the review. But with practice, and it's been a few years since my initial review of ProWritingAid, I was able to incorporate one new feature or one new report at a time. And each time that I was using it, I would add a new one in there. And like I said, it became almost a game of sorts. And it was kind of cool. But look, you don't have to use all the features, all right? You'll drive yourself crazy. I don't use all the features. I'll tell you honestly. There's some of them like, I'm not going to touch that because I just don't want to know if it's a problem. So you don't have to use all of them. I would say just use the real-time report and just go through those type of things. Definitely worth it. Now, let's go back over to grammar checkers, because there are some people that are still just adamantly against using grammar checkers, because oftentimes people think that grammar checkers are for bad or lazy writers. And the thing is, it's not just for people that are lazy. It's actually for people who want to be efficient in their workflow, because you should be writing your manuscript. You shouldn't have to be slowed down with correcting grammar mistakes or typos. Just go with flow of thought, and then you go back through with the grammar checker and clean that up. When writing, your main goal should be to write. Forget the typos and mistakes. Just get it pumped out, because that's where a grammar checker comes in. It's going to help you clean that up. And rather than painstakingly going through and editing your own manuscript where you have some type of bias, you could just have a grammar checker do it for you. That third party coming in there and looking at your manuscript is going to be so much better than you internally trying to correct this. It has nothing to do with being a poor writer or a bad writer. It has everything to do with being more efficient and also double checking your work. I mean, nobody's perfect, right? All right, so what are the features? And I'm going to rattle off some features, but I'm going to highlight a couple of them that I like to use and I lean on mostly. Now, it starts out with the core features. Now, when you use ProWritingAid, you can use it online or integrated with a number of apps. We'll discuss that here shortly. And it breaks out each one of these reports, as they call them, into specific areas. Now, the core feature starts out with the start real-time editing. Now, what it'll do is you just hit this button and it'll go through and figure out typos and all that stuff. And then there's also a summary grammar and style, overused, and combo. Now, I just usually, just as a minimum, use the real-time reports. I just go through and use that. Super, super simple, fairly intuitive. Now, the next type of feature it has is repeats. Now, if you're like me, you probably get a little redundant. You probably say the same word over and again. And then rather than trying to pick that out yourself, this is where ProWritingAid, you can slip that in there and it can figure out, oh, did I repeat this word within this paragraph or within this sentence? What can I do to replace this specific word? Echoes, all repeats, fantastic feature. Sure, you could probably go in and try to find those type of repeats with, like, say, a control F if you are using, say, Microsoft Word or something like that. But I feel like this is a little bit more targeted. It finds those things without you having to toil away and figure out, oh, normally I say werebear a lot. Let's see if we can target this word. Well, what if there's other words beyond that one? Now, the next one's going to come down to structure, which includes structure, sentence, and transitions. This right here is probably one of the more newer reports. And this is something I think that's very fascinating because it looks like it might lean even further into artificial intelligence and understanding something that is going to be, oh gosh, something that you're not going to see necessarily in a free, editor like Microsoft Editor through Microsoft Word. So really like that. Now, the next thing is going to be readability. It includes readability, sticky means sticky sentences, cliches, diction, pronoun, alliteration, and homonyms. Those ones, I don't use it too much. Readability, sometimes I'll go in there to make sure my nonfiction work is not being too overly nerdy. But beyond that, I haven't used too much of the other ones. Now, the other section's called consistency. It has consistencies and acronyms. Next one, this one's cool. I think this is another one that has been most recent, and maybe I just didn't notice it before. It's for fiction. It actually goes over style, dialogue, pacing, and sensory. Kind of like what I said before, where it seems like it really taps into the artificial intelligence to figure out structure. Now it's looking at fiction structure and fiction writing. This right here is a game changer for someone like me, who I'm just new to fiction. I'm trying to get my bearings and understand things, and I'm not trying to get my editor to, hang me out to dry because, I have to pay her an inordinate amount of money. If I can solve those issues before it goes over to her, then it'll save her time and it'll save me money. And it'll also give me a better idea of what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong before the train leaves the station. Now, there's other miscellaneous features, including one. I kind of thought this is neat. It's called House. Now, house is essentially you're able to put in some house rules, some things maybe that you are used to doing. Maybe it's dialect, maybe it's a set of characters, maybe it's a language of sorts. You can actually program that in there. The other one's plagiarism check. Now, years ago, when I first started using ProWritingAid, the plagiarism check was limited to 2 checks per year. All right. Then there was an upgraded plan that you could get up to 4 per year. Now, this was not on the lifetime plan. Lifetime plan, you could get 2 per year, but otherwise, if you had an annual or a monthly of some sort, you'd only, hang on, it was 2 per month. I walked that back here. It was 2 plagiarism checks per month. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, if I'm writing my own stuff, why would a plagiarism check make any difference? It's always just a good idea to run your stuff through a plagiarism check, just to be safe. If there is one sentence by some random reason that it matches up with another book somewhere else, this could really set off some alarms when you upload it over to Amazon KDP. Now, don't freak out. Don't go, oh my gosh, I've never done a plagiarism check on my stuff. I might be in trouble. Look, if you've made it this far, you're probably doing just fine, but it's always a good idea to check your stuff. Now, the plagiarism check feature, I think it works best for those that are self-publishers, those that are running a self-publishing business and hiring out ghostwriters. Because the thing is when you can trust yourself, fantastic. You can skip the plagiarism check on yours if you want to. The likelihood of you copying somebody's sentence verbatim is slim to none, but it can still happen nonetheless. You go beyond yourself, though. never trust anybody beyond yourself. When it comes to ghostwriting and hiring out freelancers, always check the work. Always double check with plagiarism. You do not want to take this for granted. And I know I've shared a story here on this podcast and on my main channel discussing how it became almost a very real problem with me, where I had run into a freelancer who decided she was just going to start taking work and counting it as her own that she found on some fan fiction sites, and she handed it in. And I thought, man, this is good. And then I go and check the plagiarism check and found, oh, great, this is fantastic. So plagiarism check, really good. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. They're cross-checking it across millions of different things online. Now, will it check books that are already published on Amazon KDP? Probably not, unless it's publicly available elsewhere. Next one available is the word cloud. You can also go into settings, get everything refined in there. And also they have a feedback feature. I highly recommend, if you find that ProWritingAid ever crashes on you, it has any kind of bugs, if you see something that's missing or something that you would like to add in there, hit the feedback. All right. This is not like a gigantic corporate, corporation that is run by multi-billionaires and such like that. ProWritingAid is a smaller company with a smaller staffing, and they're very attentive and want to help you out. That has been my experience so far with ProWritingAid. All right, now let's talk about the integrations. I know I probably should have led with that, but I feel like at this point I've told you it pretty much covers everywhere, including places like Microsoft Word, Google Docs, Scrivener, OpenOffice, Chrome, Firefox, and most recently, I believe it's in the works. If not, it's already done for Atticus, which is the writing software put out by the folks over at Kindlepreneur, same people who did Publisher Rocket. So ProWritingAid pretty much covers everywhere. The one thing they don't have is a mobile app at this time. So if we were to sit here and compare apples to apples on this one, with ProWritingAid versus Grammarly, Grammarly has a mobile app, albeit probably not the best mobile app in the world. I uninstalled it after a couple of days of using it. I just didn't like it. And ProWritingAid doesn't have that. If for some reason you're looking for something like that, it's not available. But what I would recommend is, if that's something that you want to see available, tell them inside the feedback. They're listening, like really are. Now, what's the cost? Let's start out with the free plan. Free plan pretty much includes like the basics. You can get a limit of like 500 words checked at a time. Now, not all the reports are going to be available. They're going to say, hey, there's some stuff wrong, but you're going to have to upgrade. Now, that's understandable. But for what it's worth, I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, and you can put it as a Chrome browser extension and just check your social media posts if you want to keep everything clean without having to spend all the time, writing this perfect tweet. Oh, well, we've wrote this tweet. Let's go ahead and we're going to spell check it with ProWritingAid. We're good to go. It's good for basic cleanup. Now, if you want the more detailed things, of course, you're going to have to probably pony up some money. Now, the monthly plan, it starts at about $20 per month. And by the way, the recording of this podcast, May 2nd, 2022, these are the prices. It could increase, I'm sure, in due time. Now, with the monthly plan, it's just month to month. All right, $20. Now, you're probably saying, whoa, $20 per month for a grammar checker? Yeah. If you pay for it in advance, though, like literally 4 months worth of month to month, an annual plan is $79. Not bad, right? Lifetime plan, you can get that for $3.99. Now, the lifetime plan means you get it for life. You're done. And to me, I'm thinking to myself, back when I saw this deal, I'm like, that's essentially me paying for 3 years in advance. Okay, I'll bite. Do you see any others out there doing this? Grammarly doesn't. They're not offering a lifetime plan. I think that's kind of cool. And I'm going to tell you this, that ProWritingAid is here to stay. Now, if I've got to eat my words later on, my apologies and such like that, but I feel they're a solid company that plans to stick around, and they include all future updates anytime you buy a lifetime license. And I've had it for a while. Yes, I didn't get it for free. I ended up buying it because I just liked it. I was like, $400, go figure. I didn't have a link that I saved 20% off on. Of course, that's a shameless plug that I'll save for a little bit later on. So let's talk about the pros and cons of ProWritingAid. Hey, pros, let's get it right out the gate. they have the most robust amount of features that you will see in any grammar checker. I've used a number of these grammar checkers before, everything from Grammarly to Textly to Hemingway, and I've heard of these other ones. I've even used WhiteSmoke, all these ones, and they pale in comparison to what you can find in ProWritingAid. They have near universal integration. I mean, it seems like ProWritingAid works for everything. Everything. At this point, I wish I could just install ProWritingAid into my brain and I can be able to actually have it edited before I ever say a single word. I might sound a little bit more intelligent. All joking aside, though, the next thing, though, is they are inexpensive compared to the others. Their competition is considerably more. Sometimes you're paying anywhere from about $11 to $20 per month for grammar checkers. And some people are like, I can't justify the expense. You look into something like the lifetime plan or even the annual plan. That's relatively inexpensive at about $80 for a year. It's ProWritingAid. You break that up amongst 12 months. That's pretty darned affordable. Now, the cons. It can be clunky at times. All right. I say this with love. All right. It will sometimes, every now and then, not act the way you wish it to. And I typically see this inside the browser extension, more so than I see it inside the integration with Microsoft Word, where I use it quite a bit. You're going to need to train it. It's almost like Dragon, naturally speaking, where you got to train your Dragon. You got to train your ProWritingAid, because every now and then there's going to be some things that you as a writer have as a voice. That is your voice and how you deliver it. And ProWritingAid and other grammar checkers shouldn't tell you whether that's right or wrong. If that's the way you like to deliver it, that's your craft and how you express yourself, then you should be able to tell the software, I don't want this, or I want this. So having that flexibility, yeah, you're going to need to train it, but after you use it for a while, it's going to get used to certain things that you use. It's not perfect. Folks, none of the grammar checkers out there are perfect. If you think that it's perfect, you're sorely mistaken. But it's certainly head and shoulders above the rest, in my opinion. That's ProWritingAid. And by the way, folks, you can get 20% off ProWritingAid when you visit my affiliate link at dalelinks.com/ProWritingAid. Overall, I think everybody knows I gush about ProWritingAid time and again. They're not a sponsor right now, by the way. They were a sponsor for me previously, but to be honest with you, I can confidently stand behind them without the sponsorship dollars because they are just a fantastic company. Speaking of a fantastic company, this very next week, we're going to be going over to another one of my preferred services in BookBrush. I'm going to talk about some of the details, the pros, the cons, the price breakdowns, and everything else in between. To get advanced access to all the podcasts, visit dalelinks.com/YouTube podcast 1 week before the audio content publishes across every podcasting platform. And do me a huge favor. Could you leave me a review over on Apple? That'd be so awesome if you're listening to me on Apple. If you're listening to me over on Google Play Books, leave a review or a rating over there. I definitely would appreciate it. And any of the other platforms as well. Till later, this has been Self-Publishing with Dale, and I'll chat with you next week. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. Special shout out to my channel members for both the podcast channel and the main channel. Without your support, some projects we do at Self-Publishing with Dale would be much harder to fund. If you want to contribute to the cause, visit dalelinks.com/memberships for details and get your on-screen shout out at the end of each broadcast. Till later, this has been Self-Publishing with Dale, and I'll see you soon.